yourself for lies.
Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your hands on me. Meet me at our usual place at 7. I really need you, Marcus. That was the text that changed everything. The one moment in time that altered the path of my life in a direction I wouldn't have predicted just a few months ago. Okay, let me explain from the start. I had come home early from work to surprise my wife with a nice home-cooked meal. That decision hadn't been impulsive, it had been deliberate, almost ceremonial. For weeks, maybe longer, I'd felt like something in our marriage was slipping just out of reach. Not breaking, not exploding, just thinning. Like a rope being pulled strand by strand until you don't notice it's fraying anymore. I told myself it was stress. My job had been brutal lately. Quarter-end deadlines, staffing shortages, endless meetings that could have been emails. Sarah had her own pressures too. She'd joined a new book club, taken on extra volunteer work at the community center, started talking about needing space to think. None of it seemed alarming on its own. Couples evolve, seasons change. 15 years together had taught me that. But I missed her. Missed the version of us that used to linger over dinner, talking about nothing and everything. Missed how she used to lean against the counter while I cooked, stealing bites and pretending she was critiquing like a chef. Missed the way she used to laugh when I burned something and declare it rustic. So, when my last meeting wrapped up early that afternoon, I didn't hesitate. I drove straight home, stopping at the grocery store for ingredients she loved. Fresh herbs, real butter, the kind of pasta we only bought when we wanted dinner to feel special. I even picked up a bottle of wine we used to save for anniversaries before life got busy and celebrations started feeling like logistical challenges instead of moments. I wanted to remind her that I was still here, that we were still here. The house was quiet when I walked in. The familiar hush that used to feel comforting and now felt hollow. I put my keys down, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work. Chopping vegetables, heating oil, letting muscle memory take over. Cooking had always been my way of grounding myself, of doing something tangible when everything else felt abstract. I was plating the food when my phone chimed. Just one soft sound, nothing urgent, nothing dramatic. Sarah's name lit up the screen. I smiled automatically. 15 years of conditioning. I expected something mundane, running late, or don't wait up, or can you feed the dog? Then, I read the message. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your hands on me. Meet me at our usual place at 7. I really need you, Marcus. My brain rejected it at first, like a foreign language I recognized but couldn't translate. I read it again, then again, slower each time as if pacing myself would somehow soften the blow. It didn't. The knife slipped from my hand and hit the tile with a sharp clink. I stared at it, registering the sound but not reacting. My chest felt tight, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. My pulse roared in my ears. 15 years. This is how I find out? I searched for explanations, not logically, but instinctively. Wrong number, someone else using her phone, a joke taken wildly out of context, anything that didn't involve your hands on me and I really need you. But there was nothing to reinterpret, no ambiguity, no wiggle room. I sank into a chair, my phone still glowing in my hand. My mind started replaying moments I'd brushed off. Her phone always face down now. The way she smiled at messages and then smoothed her expression when she noticed me watching. The late nights that didn't quite line up with book club schedules. I'd noticed. I just hadn't wanted to know. I thought about the first apartment we shared, how we'd eaten dinner on the floor because we couldn't afford a table yet, how she'd said, "Someday we'll laugh about this," and I had believed her. I thought about the night I proposed, my hands shaking so badly I dropped the ring box. She'd laughed through tears and said yes before I finished asking. I thought about the miscarriage, The way we'd held each other in the dark, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. About how surviving that loss had felt like proof we could survive anything. I stared at my phone again, a hollow laugh escaping my throat. My mind was still trying to process. I was trying to find a way to explain all this to myself in a way that would make sense. To explain how long it had been going on. To explain how many lies it took to maintain this version of reality. To explain how someone you trust with your entire life decides over and over to step outside it. I didn't respond. I just sat there, staring at the half-finished dinner, the wine bottle still unopened. The irony felt almost cruel. I'd wanted to surprise her. Instead, I'd surprised myself. Time blurred. Minutes stretched into something shapeless. Then I heard the sound of keys in the lock. The front door opened. "David?" Sarah called. "Why aren't you at work?" Her voice sounded different, lighter than it should have been, then tightening when she didn't hear my usual reply. I stood slowly and held up my phone. "Interesting book club discussion last night," I said. The color drained from her face instantly. It was like watching someone realize the floor beneath them had vanished. "David, Who is Marcus?" My voice was calm. Too calm. I could tell it unsettled her more than yelling would have. She set her purse down carefully, like sudden movements might shatter what little control she had left. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. "Really? Because I think my wife is sleeping with someone named Marcus and texting him about how much she needs him. What part am I misunderstanding?" Her eyes filled with tears, spilling over as she took a step toward me. "Please," she said, "let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "That last night while I was working late to pay for this house you were with him? Explain how long this has been going on? Explain how many times you've lied to me?" She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. "It's been 3 months." 3 months. The words landed like a physical blow. 3 months of what, Sarah? I asked quietly. 3 months of making a fool out of me? "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said quickly. "Marcus and we just connected, and you've been so distant lately." "So this is my fault?" I stood, the chair screaming loudly behind me. "I've been distant, so you decided to cheat?" "That's not what I meant," she cried. "You work all the time, David. When was the last time we really talked? When was the last time you looked at me the way you used to?" Her words stung because part of me recognized the truth buried inside them. "When was the last time you gave me a reason to?" I shot back. "Apparently, you've been saving all your attention for Marcus." She flinched, like the name itself hurt to hear out loud. "I never meant for this to happen," she said, sobbing. "I love you. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. 3 months of sleeping with another man isn't a mistake. It's a series of choices." "What do you want me to say?" she pleaded. "That I'm sorry? Because I am. I want to fix this." "Fix this?" I shook my head slowly. "You can't fix this, Sarah. You destroyed it." Silence settled between us, thick and heavy. The oven timer beeped, shrill in the quiet. It has probably beeped several times already. I walked over and turned it off, the smell of overcooked food filling the air. Dinner burned, and somehow, that felt exactly right. The house didn't explode after that night. That was the first thing that surprised me. No slammed doors, no screaming matches that carried into the street, no dramatic exits or broken picture frames. Just quiet. An unnatural, suffocating quiet that settled into every room like dust after a collapse. Sarah slept on the couch that night. Not because I asked her to. She just picked up a blanket and pillow without saying a word and moved there, like she'd already accepted that the bedroom was no longer neutral ground. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun uselessly above me, each rotation marking time I couldn't sleep through. I replayed everything. Her message, her face when she realized I knew. The way she said 3 months like it was something manageable, something forgivable. I kept waiting for the anger to roaring back, but it didn't. What settled instead was something heavier, grief mixed with disbelief, like my mind refused to catch up with reality, stuck buffering between "this can't be real" and "this already is." At some point near dawn, I heard her crying softly from the living room. I didn't go to her. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't know how to sit beside someone who had shattered my sense of safety. I didn't know how to comfort the source of my pain without betraying myself. The next morning, we moved around each other like strangers sharing an Airbnb. She made coffee. I poured a cup without looking at her. The clink of ceramic against the counter sounded too loud. Every small noise did. "I'm going to work late tonight," she said tentatively, her voice tentative as if she was testing whether speaking was allowed. I nodded once. Okay. It wasn't permission, it was indifference. She flinched anyway. For the first few days, we barely spoke. When we did, it was purely logistical. "I'll grab groceries. I have a meeting. The trash goes out tonight." We didn't ask how the other was doing. We didn't say goodnight. We avoided eye contact like it might trigger something neither of us was prepared to deal with. I slept in the guest room by the third night. Our bedroom felt like a defiled temple to me. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just space, just breathing room. But when I carried my pillow down the hall, I felt something final click into place, like a door closing quietly behind me. The guest room smelled faintly of dust and old books. It had always been the extra space, the room we talked about turning into an office or nursery someday. Now it felt like exile. Every night I lay there listening to the house settle, imagining Sarah on the couch, her phone glowing in the dark. I wondered if she was still texting him, if she felt guilty, if she felt relieved. I hated that I cared. During the day, I functioned on autopilot. I went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings where people complained about deadlines like they mattered. Inside, I felt hollow. Colleagues asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. That was close enough to the truth to pass. At night, the memories came back hard. The road trip we took after our wedding, sleeping in cheap motels and eating gas station snacks because it felt adventurous. The way she used to trace circles on my arm when she was anxious. The nights we stayed up talking about everything we wanted our life to be. Had all of that been real? Or had it only ever mattered to me? By the end of the first week, the silence became unbearable. Sarah finally broke it. "I made an appointment," she said quietly one evening, standing in the doorway of the guest room, "with a marriage counselor." I looked up from the edge of the bed. "You already decided that?" "I thought," she swallowed, "I thought it might help, if you're willing." Willing. The word annoyed me more than it should have. "Fine," I said after a moment. "I'll go." Relief flickered across her face, fragile and fleeting. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't respond. The counselor's office was warm and intentionally neutral. Soft lighting, calming art, a box of tissues on the table like a silent accusation. Dr. Reynolds smiled kindly as we sat down on opposite ends of the couch. "Thank you both for being here. I know this isn't easy." Sarah nodded, eyes already glossy. I folded my hands together and stared at the floor. "Who would like to start?" Dr. Reynolds asked. Sarah inhaled shakily. "I'll go." Of course she would. She talked about feeling lonely, about feeling unseen, about how I'd been emotionally unavailable for years. She framed the affair like something that happened to her, not something she chose. "I didn't feel wanted anymore. Marcus made me feel noticed." I clenched my jaw. Dr. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. And, David, how does it feel hearing that? I looked up slowly, like it's blaming me for something I didn't do. Sarah turned toward me. I'm not blaming you, you're explaining, which feels a lot like justifying. The counselor raised a hand gently. Let's slow down. I laughed bitterly. Funny, that's what I should have done months ago, right? Sarah burst into tears. Dr. Reynolds handed her a tissue. David, can you share what this betrayal has been like for you? Betrayal. Hearing it named out loud hit harder than I expected. I feel like my life split in half, before I knew and after, and I don't recognize anything on this side. Sarah sobbed harder. I trusted you, I continued, completely, and now every memory feels contaminated, like I don't know what was real and what was just convenient. The session ended with homework. Communicate openly, avoid blame language, rebuild trust slowly. It felt insulting. Trust wasn't a muscle you strengthened with exercises. It was a foundation, and ours had cracked straight through. We went to counseling every week, and every week it felt worse. Sarah wanted reassurance, wanted to know if we'd be okay, wanted me to hold her hand in the waiting room to show the counselor we were trying. I couldn't. Every time she touched me, my body recoiled before my mind could catch up. Her hand on my arm didn't feel comforting. It felt intrusive. At home, she tried harder. She cooked dinner, asked about my day, suggested date nights. Maybe we could start fresh, she said one evening. Go somewhere nice. I stared at my plate. You already went somewhere nice, with him. She flinched. That's not fair. No, I replied evenly. It's accurate. In counseling, Dr. Reynolds encouraged empathy. Affairs often stem from unmet needs, she said gently. I snapped. Then maybe we should talk about unmet vows. The room went silent. Sarah looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. The sessions became circular. She apologized. I didn't forgive. She cried. I shut down. Dr. Reynolds suggested individual therapy, suggested time apart, suggested redefining boundaries. Nothing touched the core issue. I didn't trust her. And worse, I didn't want to. One night, after a particularly brutal session, Sarah followed me to the guest room. Are you ever going to forgive me? She asked, voice breaking. I sat on the edge of the bed. I don't know. That's not enough, she said desperately. I need to know if there's hope. I looked at her then, really looked. Her fear, her regret, her need for reassurance from the person she'd hurt most. And something inside me hardened. You don't get to need things from me right now. You gave that up when you chose him. She sank onto the floor, crying openly. I didn't move. The final counseling session ended without ceremony. Dr. Reynolds asked us where we saw the marriage going. Sarah spoke first. I want to rebuild. I want us. I was silent. David, the counselor prompted. I exhaled slowly. I don't want this marriage anymore. Sarah's head snapped toward me. What? I've tried, I continued. I showed up. I listened. I sat through weeks of being told why my pain is understandable but inconvenient. That's not fair. I don't feel safe with you, I said, and love doesn't survive without safety. Dr. Reynolds nodded solemnly. Sometimes the work reveals that reconciliation isn't possible. Sarah broke down. I felt nothing but exhaustion. That night, I packed a bag, not dramatically, not angrily, just deliberately. As I zipped it closed, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't leaving because she cheated. I was leaving because staying meant betraying myself. And I was finally done doing that. I moved out a week after our final counseling session. Not because of something new that was said, not because the therapist finally crossed some invisible line, or because Sarah and I erupted into one last argument. The session ended the same way most of them had: quiet, heavy, unresolved. The therapist asked, gently, "Do you both feel this marriage is still a safe place to rebuild from?" Sarah hesitated. I didn't. That was the moment I knew. Not dramatically, not painfully, just clearly. When I packed to move out, I did it early in the morning when the house was still asleep. I moved room by room like I was inventorying someone else's life. Clothes first: work shirts, jeans. The jacket Sarah once bought me for my birthday still smelled faintly like her perfume. I held it for a second longer than necessary, then folded it anyway. Documents went into a manila folder: passport, birth certificate, tax records, things that proved I existed independently of the marriage. I took a few books, the ones I'd read before Sarah, the ones that still felt like mine. Everything else stayed. The couch we picked out together, the dining table where we hosted holidays, the framed photos lining the hallway, vacations, anniversaries, smiling versions of ourselves who had no idea how fragile they were. I didn't take the wedding album. I couldn't. The house felt wrong. Not hostile, not sad, just empty in a way that didn't match its shape. Like a stage after the play had ended, props still in place, lights off, audience gone. Sarah appeared in the hallway as I zipped the suitcase. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. Her hair pulled back hastily, like she hadn't planned on this morning being different from any other. "You don't have to do this," she said. Her voice was thin, stretched tight, like it might snap if she pulled on it too hard. "We can't," I said. She blinked like she hadn't expected that, like there was still room for negotiation. "We can't," I added. She stepped closer, barefoot on the hardwood floor. "So that's it? 15 years and you're just leaving?" There it was, the way she framed it, as if this were sudden, as if I were impulsive, as if she had been quietly exiting months before I ever touched a suitcase. I stood there with my hand on the zipper, my reflection faintly visible in the mirrored closet door. I looked older than I felt, or maybe younger, like someone stripped down to essentials. For a moment, I considered explaining how many nights I'd stayed awake beside her while she slept, wondering where exactly we'd gone wrong. How many times I'd chosen patience over confrontation. How many chances I'd offered, not grand gestures, just quiet opportunities to be honest. I thought about explaining how betrayal doesn't just break trust, it poisons memory. How every good moment becomes suspect once you know what was happening behind your back. But I knew none of that would land. So instead, I said the only true thing left. "I didn't leave," I said quietly. "You burned the bridge while I was still standing on it." Her face crumpled. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just a small collapse, like she'd finally realized there was no version of this where she didn't lose something permanent. I lifted the suitcase. She followed me to the door anyway. "You'll regret this," she said, not angrily, desperately. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "No," I replied. I already regretted staying too long. Then I walked out. The apartment I moved into was small, smaller than I'd imagined. Second floor, beige walls, cheap carpet, the kind of place that smells faintly like cleaning supplies and someone else's cooking. I bought furniture off a website, functional, forgettable. A bed, a table, a chair. No effort to make it feel like home yet. No shared memories echoing off the surfaces. The quiet there was different. Not the strained silence of two people avoiding each other in the same room, not the tension of unspoken resentment vibrating in the air. This was absence, pure, unoccupied stillness. The first night, I lay on the mattress without sheets, staring at the ceiling. I expected the familiar tightening in my chest, the racing thoughts, the replaying of conversations. None of it came. For the first time in months, my body relaxed before my mind caught up. I slept through the night. No dreams, no waking in panic, no reaching for someone who wasn't there. Just sleep. 3 weeks later, Sarah filed for divorce. She didn't do it quietly. The paperwork arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Thick, aggressive. I sat at my kitchen counter flipping through it, my coffee going cold beside me. Alimony, primary residence, an unequal division of assets, heavily in her favor. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. She cheated, she lied, she dismantled our marriage piece by piece, and now she wanted to be paid for it. I called my lawyer that evening. "This is ambitious," he said carefully. "On what grounds?" I asked. He paused. "She's alleging emotional neglect, claiming you prioritized work over the marriage." I closed my eyes. So she betrays me, and now she's rewriting history? "That's common," he replied. "Divorce tends to turn people into unreliable narrators of their own lives." I didn't yet understand how far she was willing to go. I noticed the shift before anyone said anything. Friends stopped reaching out. Invitations slowed. Conversations felt guarded. People listened differently when I spoke. Finally, one friend told me the truth. "She's saying you were emotionally abusive," he said, uncomfortable. "That you controlled her, that she felt trapped." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "She's lying," I said quietly. "I figured, but people are talking." Sarah leaned hard into the victim role. She cried to friends, talked about loneliness, claimed years of neglect, said she'd been pushed into the affair because she felt invisible. And some people believed her. Others didn't, but uncertainty alone was enough to cause damage. At work, HR called me in for a check-in. Vague questions, no accusations, just enough to let me know rumors had arrived before I had. That night, I went home and stared at the wall for a long time. If she can't keep me, I thought, she'll punish me. What Sarah didn't know, what she hadn't planned for, was that I had records. Not because I was plotting, not because I was vengeful, because I'm methodical. Text messages she forgot to delete, emails, dates, financial records, counseling notes, a timeline that showed exactly when the affair started and how it progressed. More importantly, my lawyer uncovered something else. She'd been using marital funds to support the affair. Hotels, trips, gifts, small amounts at first, then larger ones. Money she later claimed was personal spending. And then there were the emails. Emails to friends where she talked openly about playing it smart, about not ending up with nothing, about making sure David pays. Emails she assumed would never be seen. When my lawyer laid it all out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exhausted. "Do we have a case?" I asked. He nodded. "A strong one." The divorce was ugly. Sarah hired a lawyer known for aggressive tactics. Motions were filed, accusations thrown. I was painted as distant, cold, emotionally withholding. In court, she cried. A lot. She talked about loneliness, about losing herself, about feeling unseen for years. Her lawyer leaned into it hard. My client gave 15 years of her life. She deserves security. I sat there quietly. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't attack. I told the truth. I talked about trust, about commitment, about working late not to avoid my marriage, but to sustain it, about discovering the affair by accident, not confession. And then my lawyer presented the evidence, the messages, the financial records, the emails. I watched Sarah's face drain of color as her own words appeared on the screen. Calculated, dismissive, strategic. One email hit especially hard. If I play this right, I won't walk away empty-handed. The judge leaned forward. Objections were raised. Overruled. When Sarah took the stand again, she unraveled. Contradictions, deflections, tears. But the performance didn't land anymore. The decision came 6 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom, hands folded, steady. No alimony, the judge said. I exhaled slowly. Given the evidence of infidelity, financial misconduct, and bad faith manipulation, spousal support is denied. Sarah made a sound, half gasp, half sob. Considering the contributions from both parties, assets will be divided 70-30 in favor of Mr. Harris. The gavel came down. It was over. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. The truth spread faster than the lies ever had. Friends who'd pulled away reached out with apologies. Some stayed quiet, embarrassed by how easily they'd believed her. At work, HR closed the file, quietly, permanently. Sarah wasn't so lucky. Her workplace cut ties within months, officially for restructuring. Unofficially, everyone knew. Marcus was gone long before that. He disappeared the moment consequences showed up. We sold the house and split the proceeds as directed by the judge. She moved in with a roommate and took a job at a grocery store. I didn't hear this from her. I heard it from others. I didn't feel satisfaction, just distance. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, she texted me. It wasn't late at night. It wasn't dramatic. It arrived on a quiet Sunday afternoon while I was folding laundry, the sun coming in through the window of my apartment in a way that still felt unfamiliar but no longer lonely. Her name appeared on my screen. Then I opened the message. I made a mistake. I see that now. Can we talk? That was it. No preamble, no apology long enough to mean anything. Just 4 sentences that tried to compress years of damage into something conversational. I stared at the screen and waited for something to surface. Anger, grief, satisfaction, curiosity. Nothing came. Just clarity. That was how I knew I was done. I typed my response carefully, not because I owed her kindness, but because I didn't want to give her anything she could reinterpret later. No, I wish you well, but this chapter is closed. I hit send and set the phone down. It buzzed less than a minute later. Please, I've changed. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I didn't answer. It rang again the next day, then again 2 days after that. Voicemails followed, short at first, then longer. I just want 5 minutes. I know I don't deserve it, but I need closure. I'm not asking to get back together. I just need to talk. I deleted them without listening past the first few seconds. Then the email started. A new address each time, like changing the wrapper might make the message land differently. I'm in therapy now. I finally understand what I did to you. You don't owe me forgiveness, but you owe yourself peace. That one almost annoyed me. The audacity of telling me what I owed myself after everything she'd taken. I didn't respond. That's when other people started reaching out. At first, it was subtle. An old mutual friend texted, "Hey man, hope you're doing okay. Random question. Have you talked to Sarah lately?" I replied politely, "No, I don't plan to." A few days later, another friend called, someone I hadn't spoken to in months. "She's not doing great," she said carefully. "She keeps saying you're the only one who really knew her." "That's exactly why I can't go back," I said. "Knowing someone doesn't obligate you to sacrifice yourself for them." Silence on the other end. "I just thought you should know she's really sorry," she said finally. "I know. Being sorry isn't the same as being safe." The calls kept coming. Not aggressive, not hostile, just persuasive. People acting as messengers, as if my boundary were a misunderstanding instead of a decision. She's hit rock bottom. She lost her job. She's living with a roommate now. She cries all the time. Each update felt like it was designed to trigger something in me: pity, guilt, responsibility. None of it worked. Eventually, even her sister reached out. "I know you don't owe her anything, but if you ever cared about her at all." "I did," I interrupted gently. "That's why I walked away." She didn't call again. The last attempt came months later, handwritten this time. A letter slipped into my mailbox without a return address. She wrote about memories, about trips we'd taken, about inside jokes, about the version of me she missed, the patient one, the forgiving one, the man who used to believe love could survive anything. She ended it with, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I still believe what we had was real." I folded the letter once, then again. I shredded the letter and took the trash out. That night, I sat on my balcony and watched the city settle into evening. Cars passed below. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. Life continued, indifferent and steady. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. That's when I met her. Jennifer worked in urban planning for the city. Not flashy, not impressed by titles, not particularly interested in what I did for a living beyond how many hours it stole from me. We started seeing each other slowly, deliberately, no rushing. She didn't pry into my past, and I didn't volunteer it right away. When I eventually told her about the marriage, about Sarah, she listened without interruption, without trying to fix it, without framing herself as the antidote. 2 years later, I proposed. She said yes without hesitation. The ring was modest, but for her, that was enough. We built something steady, not dramatic, not performative, just honest. 3 months after the engagement, we ran into Sarah. Jennifer and I were walking through a downtown farmer's market on a Saturday morning, her arm looped through mine, debating whether Honeycrisp apples were overrated. I was mid-argument when I felt it, that old sensation, the awareness of being watched. I turned. Sarah stood near a flower stall, holding a paper bag, frozen in place like she'd stepped into a photograph she wasn't part of anymore. She looked thinner, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Her clothes were neat but worn, like someone trying very hard not to be noticed. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward us, slowly, hesitantly. "David," she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered, less certain. "Sarah," I replied, evenly. Jennifer felt the shift immediately. She straightened slightly, not possessive, not defensive, just present. "This is Jennifer," I said, "my fiancée." The word landed. I saw it hit her before she could hide it. "Oh," Sarah said. Her gaze dropped to Jennifer's hand, to the ring. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Jennifer said, kind but measured. There was an awkward pause. The noise of the market filled the space, Laughter, music, vendors calling out prices. Life moving forward without waiting for resolution. "You look well," Sarah said finally. "I am, and I meant it." She nodded, swallowing. "I heard you moved, changed jobs." "Yes." "I'm glad," she said. "You always deserved peace." Jennifer glanced at me, then back at Sarah. "We should probably keep moving," she said gently, giving me an out without pushing. I appreciated that more than she knew. Sarah hesitated. "Could I, just for a moment?" Jennifer looked at me. I nodded. She stepped a few feet away, pretending to examine produce. Sarah lowered her voice. "I think about you, more than I should." I didn't respond. "I know I ruined everything," she continued. "I see that now. I really do." "I know," I said quietly. She flinched, as if she'd hoped for disagreement. "I lost a lot," she said, "more than I expected." I looked at her then, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You let me go." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for all of it." "I believe you," I replied, "but it doesn't change anything." She nodded slowly. "I see that." Another pause. She glanced back at Jennifer, who was watching us without suspicion, without fear. "She seems good," Sarah said. "She is. And she doesn't know this version of me, the one who was always apologizing for existing." Sarah managed a small, sad smile. "I wish I'd met that man." "You did," I said gently. "You just didn't value him." That was the moment it settled in for her. Not dramatically, not with tears or anger, just the quiet understanding that the life she thought she could reclaim was no longer available. "I won't bother you again," she promised. "I know," I replied. She stepped back, hesitated, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like someone exiting a stage long after the audience has gone home. Jennifer returned to my side. "You okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and this time there was no hesitation. She squeezed my hand. "Good." We continued through the market, apples forgotten, conversation resuming like nothing had happened. And that was the final proof. Not that Sarah regretted what she'd done, but that her regret no longer had a place in my life. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Thanks for listening to our story. It's wonderful to have you here. Please like and subscribe to have more content come your way, and do check out the other stories from our channel.